Welcome, everybody. Good evening. My name is Ed Gow Jr. I'm a member of the Dad Central Steering Committee in Ontario. I'd like to say thank you so much for taking time out of your positive, productive schedule to be with us tonight for another one of our monthly conversations that are for fathers. And it's co-sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization, and Dove Men Care. And before we get right into our important topic tonight, I'd like to say hello to the lady on the panel that I said treat my sidekick tonight, as always, Drew Solon. How are you, Drew? What's going on?
Well, thanks so much, Ed. It's great to be here. It's great to have our panelists. I think these are some of the best I think times with Dad Central is being able to bring so many people in who share their perspectives, share their insight, but really to share value for anyone who works with families or anyone who is a dad or going on a family basically. And so as always, I really love hearing what the panel has to share, and I really hope it just offers a ton of value for people. So I'm excited about tonight. So thanks, Ed.
You're very welcome. Thank you, as always. So what we're going to do first, I'm going to invite each one of our guests, our friends here for tonight's conversation. And first off, we always like to do ladies first. Louise Leonardi, she's the executive director for the Canadian Families and the Corrections Network. Welcome, Louise. And I also want you to say, why is this an important subject for you?
Hi, everyone. I'm really happy to be here tonight. I think that this is a really important topic because, first of all, I don't think that men get near the attention as dads that women do as moms. And I think that that's really something that we need to change. And I also think that men are very, very much needed by their children. And sometimes we don't give them that space and that thought. So it's great that you're doing this at Dad Central, and it's great to be here to help. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for making it out. Next up, we have a return visitor, Dr. John Olive, Professor and Associate Director of Research at the School of Nursing, the University of British Columbia. John, thanks for making it again. And why do you find this an important subject to talk about?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for the opportunity, first and foremost. And just to say, we do a lot of work in men's mental health, and there's very strong connections between separation and mental health challenges for guys. So oftentimes we don't talk about it enough, some of those connections and some strategies, some strength-based strategies for how we might get past that. So I'm really looking forward to the conversation tonight.
Thank you for being here. Next up is a gentleman that I know, Marcel Parent, father of three, husband, public service manager, and volunteer scouter. And I'm very happy to have him on because I know this is a very important subject that he'll be able to share his insights with. But welcome, Marcel, and why do you feel that this is an important subject?
Well, first, thank you. Once again, I think it's great to have an opportunity to help in some way. It's important to me, from a personal journey perspective. I went through a lot, and I never realized that there was a network like this that existed. So if there's some way that I can help by sharing my story in some small way, then I'm eager to do that. So thank you.
You're very welcome, Marcel. And finally, we have Robin Clove. He is host and executive producer at Relationships with Rob, which I believe is a podcast, the first time I'm meeting him. So Robin, welcome. And why is this an important subject for you?
Well, first of all, thank you guys for putting all this together. I'm honored to speak amongst just an amazing panel here. So thank you guys for putting this together. This is definitely an important subject for me because I personally went through it, and there's going to be thousands of other men that are going to go through it as well. It's just a machine that's not going to stop. So it's better to, put the right resources in place because, like as other people have mentioned before, men don't really get that light as much as the women do. So, and also has to deal with like us not speaking up about our issues or our problems. And so, just giving these platforms to people, I think is the most important thing. And having everybody share their unique experiences is just gonna catapult this movement or this issue a little bit further down the road. So
Thank you so much. Welcome. So I'd just like to say thank you for everyone that's watching this live or on replay. If you're watching it live with us right now, please feel free to make comments, questions. And if we have time after our group conversation, we'll certainly address them. So we're going to start off with the first question or conversation point. Research tells us that most fathers really value their role as dad and want to be there for their kids. But we also know from research that dads who don't live with their kids view themselves more negatively as fathers. What would you say to a separated, single, geographically removed dad who may be feeling discouraged about his role as father? And just before we get there, the order of the answers will be Louise, then John, Marcel, then Robin. And also to Robin and Marcel, please feel free, if you're comfortable, to share your personal experience in this conversation. So Louise, please give us a start.
Well, in working at Canadian Families and Corrections Network, our dads that we work with are actually in jail. So to us, it means a physical separation while they're in jail. But when they come out, it could be separation, divorce, not have access to your children, or be perfectly happy with your family, however that looks. So it's a different kind of a perspective. And research kind of tells us that children are 2 to 4 times more likely to follow their parents' footsteps into jail. And we know that most dads don't really want that. So a lot of times we do have very discouraged and anxiety dads inside. And at CFCN, we ran a project called Dad Hero. And the HERO stands for Helping Everyone Realize Opportunities. So it's funded by the Movember Foundation, and it's an 8-week course to teach dads about the value they have inside. And that's really what I would talk to a discouraged or geographically removed dad, is really about the gifts that you have to be a great dad. You know, you might be in jail, but you might have the patience, unbelievable patience. And of course, you know, as a dad, that's something that we really need as a parent, right? Or you might have, I don't know, great skills to teach your son or daughter to pass on. Maybe you know how to fix bicycles or do crafts or whatever you want to do. So what I would say to those dads that are discouraged is you definitely have gifts within you. And you need to take the time to think about what those gifts are. What do you want to pass to your kids? What do you want to teach them?
Good stuff. Next up, John.
Yeah, so some really great points there. Just to build upon a couple of them, to think about sometimes the tyranny of distance, not being in the room and with your child. You know, that can be challenging, but I think if COVID's taught us anything, I think it might have taught us that there's lots of ways of influencing, mentoring, being in touch. You know, whether it's by phone, whether it's via Zoom. Kids learn in lots of ways, and I think, you know, you can exert an influence and be there and be supportive just in the right timing of being in touch, of looking for different ways of being connected. A text goes a long way these days. You know, email's probably a little bit old these days, but there's ways of being connected, and I think, you know, we need to be a bit innovative, because if we're separated out from the direct contact, just need to think about some strategies for being able to communicate and work through some of that to nurture the relationship with the kids.
Okay, fantastic. Marcel.
Thanks. I guess there was a time in my experience, this is my 3rd marriage, and I have 3 children, 2 from the current marriage and 1 from the first marriage. And there was a time when I separated early. My daughter was 3 at the time, and it hurt so much to go and visit her and know that I would be apart from her for such a long time. And it was quite a selfish thing of me to say. I see it now, but I said to my mother, I don't think I can do this anymore. It's easier just to say that, you know, I died, and for her to move on with her life. And my mother was the one who said to me, "Don't you dare do that. You can have an influence on her. You just don't see it now." And she insisted that I persevere. And she said some pretty strong words, which I won't repeat right now. But anyway, so I would say to those to persevere and press on. you never know the impact that you will have. And it could be the smallest thing. It's interesting, John mentioned texting. I know my daughter, we went through some ups and downs, and through her teenage years, we were not talking for a long period of time. And it was texting that brought us back together. And it was just the little things that you paved the road in the past that brought us back together again. And I just would say persevere, because trust me, you are making an impact, and you may not even realize it, but you are making an impact.
That is good stuff, Marcel. Robin?
Yeah, I just want to give a little context about what happened with my divorce. I eventually gave rights to my ex-wife, and so I haven't seen my children in about 7 years, I'd say. And yeah, so the decision, it's a little bit unusual. The decision that I had made was because, I was an addict. I was depressed, drinking all the time, and I wasn't a good dad. And so it just made sense for her to be there. And, with the logistics, I was moving back from Toronto to Vancouver. So that was just, it was just better for them to be in Vancouver with, where they were already being raised, and so on and so forth. So anyway, haven't seen my children in 7 years. The sacrifice was made so that, because I had to really, really take a deep dive on myself and say, like, what kind of father do I need to step into? What is that role? Because I didn't know, I was a young dad. I mean, I had 2 kids by the time I was 27, young to our standards these days, right? Like, I mean, you go back at like our parents' ages, they're having kids at like way younger than we were and getting married at way younger than we were. But, given that context, I kind of lived life in that kind of fast lane. And so didn't know what I was doing really in my early 20s. And so I had to figure out what I needed to be as a dad, and I had to make that sacrifice of not seeing my children. Granted, they have a stable household that they're being raised in, right? Like, she's living with a positive male role model, and they are happy together, and they're being raised correctly from what I understand. So with that being said, there was a lot of pain and suffering that I had to go through, not being able to see my children, and not knowing that they're doing okay. Right. It was just it was an agreement that we had made in court, selfishly. But just to go back, what would I say to somebody in my shoes or who's going through something like that right now? I would say get around people who understand you. And basically what I mean by that is other divorced fathers. And so that's what I did. I didn't have anybody around me to kind of, even just have this chit chat with. I didn't have this, like, I didn't even have a brother. Like, I have a brother, but he doesn't understand what I'm going through. And so I needed other tech, quote unquote, brothers to speak to about this. And so that's why I created this group. There's 3,500 plus, I think we're almost at 4,000 members now. But that group essentially picked me up from the ashes and said, "We got you, brother. We're gonna get through this together." And these are people that I don't even know. And so if we have that type of camaraderie within a private Facebook group, imagine the possibilities that you can have, like, in your immediate circles, right? So I would say reach out to people. Don't feel like you can do this all by yourself, because obviously my situation is like a 10 out of 10. You don't ever want someone to go through what I went through, right? And so that's at a really, really high level. So, like, you need people around you. Granted, there are some situations where more less volatile. You might not need a lot of people around you. Like, you might just have your family and your close friends. But I would say get around divorced men who have been through your shoes, who have felt your pain, who understand what you're going through mentally, emotionally, socially, and then just hang around them. That's all you really need. But they need to be positive, obviously. Not like the guys that are bringing you down. Sorry to be long-winded.
That's okay. It's all right. It's a valuable experience, and I know it's going to help at least one person there. Now, Drew, I know you want to come in, and then I'm going to circle back to see if anyone else on the panel wants to add. So, Drew, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, first thing I want to say is, Rob, thanks so much for sharing your experience and what you went through. And Marcel, also same with you. I really appreciate knowing that it could be quite challenging to bring up and even discuss some of those old experiences and some of the pain that you've gone through. So thank you very much for sharing that. Two things. One, Marcel, I just want to share a short story that validates even the smallest of things can make a difference, and it can make a difference years later. So in my story, I had a pretty traumatic experience with my father when I was 3 years old, where he abducted me. But the story I want to tell is of a letter that I saw from my father. I think it happened last year. My mom saved everything that from that experience. Obviously, our family separation, etc. So she saved everything that as I grew, though. And so my father had written this letter to me, and I read it as a 40-year-old, and I broke down because it expressed his love for me in that letter. But I hadn't read it until I was 40, and it was written to me when I was 13. So no matter what age or stage or what goes on, I believe you and 100% agree from my personal lived experience, it has and can have a big impact. So, anyway, so for that, for Rob, for you, in terms of your point about getting around other people, I can't tell you how valuable having others around you to lift you up in those moments when you don't think you can keep moving is. Movember talks about it. They're doing more and branching out more and sharing even more about it. But, and they've also published research last year about the value of social connections for just the transition into fatherhood and how powerful that is. So, and of course, now with COVID, we all know, it's just so valuable. So I just wanted to reinforce those points and share that short story. Thanks, Ed.
No problem. Anyone else on the panel want to add anything before we move on to the next conversation piece? Everyone good? All right. And again, if comments are coming in on the chat, so please keep them coming. So let's go on to our next conversation piece. And I think it was touched about a little bit, but there may be some expanding on it. Given the challenges that a dad may face during after separation, what is most important for dads to focus on for their personal well-being as a parent through or after separation? So Louise, we'll start off with you again first.
Well, I know you said most important, but I really have two.
That's all right. Okay.
So, first, I'd like to say, as sometimes people get really angry with their situation, and sometimes things are not under your control and they're just not working out for you the way you had hoped your life would be going. And that's really, really hard. And, sometimes if the relationship is not good, there's a lot of what we call bashing or negative conversation about dad to the children. And I think that's really, really painful for a dad to hear and to deal with. And that might make you angry too, and it might make you really, really sad. But I think it's important to acknowledge the fact that your children might be really confused, and your children might not understand everything. They might feel abandoned, and to go back to what Robin said, at that point, it's really important to talk to someone else. Social connectedness is so very important for all of us, but especially for men and dads who are in different situations. And you need to find your tribe. You need to find the people that are just like you and in that situation. And my second point is, I think self-care is really important. Whether you're in prison or not, separated, divorced, whatever that looks like, if you're not feeling and just your best, then it's really important to make sure that you're eating well and sleeping well and getting as much exercise and outdoor time as you can, just so that you can be okay inside, and then you can give that to other people. So as a dad, those are the things that I hear and I think too are so very, very important.
Thank you for that, John.
Yeah, just to pick up on a couple of great points that Louise made. I think the first thing is that you're not alone. 26% of the 11 million Canadians between 35 and 64 years of age are on their second marriage or common law partnership. It's a common transition that lots of people go through, lots of guys go through. So there's that sense that it happens to lots of people, and I think we can be affirmed in that, that we can take that on board. And I really want to pick up on that point around exercise and things to do in terms of exercise. Definitely it does help us with mood. And I think one of the most underrated parts of exercise is the cool down when you're walking back maybe from the run, and some time to think through strategy and to slow things down and just cognitively process things in a little bit of a slower way. so as you make informed decisions, because there's lots of decisions and lots of negotiation points that go with a separation. So again, thinking through that, and the only other one I'd throw in is just to say, we talk about things we should do, but there is a few things perhaps we shouldn't do, and I think alcohol-free days is one of the things that we want to think about, and then counting the drinks when we are having a drink, if we are indeed, you know, having a drink. Just there are things that are just, we want to sort of temper to be the best we can, because there's lots of decisions, lots of things to work through. So we want to be at our best to make informed decisions.
Thank you very much, Marcel.
I guess I'm going to give you two things as well. Two thoughts came to my mind.
That's okay.
One is it's just words, and the second one is having healthy distractions. So the first one, it's just words. I know in the courtroom, as we went through custody battle, so many really horrible things were said about me, and a lot of words were said by my ex-wife saying, "You're never going to see your child," etc. And when you hear those words, I know for me that I get this visceral response where I want to defend. And the best advice a good friend said to me, and I'm thankful for that friend, is it's just words. No court is going to agree to that unless there's justification. Let them see the evidence and make a decision. Calm down. And I read a little quote that said, "Don't worry about what people say about you. Just act above it, and those people will become liars." So if my ex-wife spoke poorly about me, which she did, my daughter would see something different. And eventually she would say, "Well, wait a minute, that doesn't match up. What that person says is not what I see consistently." And you may have had, I've had rough days, but whenever I read that, I thought, I got to snap out of it and I got to make sure I maintain. So that's that. And the healthy distraction, well, I think it's just I think John's comment about exercise is a great healthy distraction. I'm a wood carver, and I can get immersed in wood carving, and it just gets my mind off of other things. And so that is my happy place. And so I would look for going and just absorbing myself into that so that I can just come out of that refreshed and get my thoughts filed and get back to what I need to focus on point.
Excellent. Robin, you're allowed to have two if you want.
Those answers are all amazing, by the way. I just want to feed off some of that as well. You know, the health part, like, you know, that's a non-issue. That's a given. I'm saying that's something you should always put into play anyway. But I'll just feed off of that. This is a little bit more cerebral in nature. This answer is a little bit more heady. So, you know, there's this thing that astronauts call the overview effect. It's when they go into space, outer space, they have this, what they call, it's like a cognitive shift in awareness. They see things in a different lens. And so what I would say is, you know, especially when you're taking inventory of yourself, right? You need to take inventory of the world as well. Like, what else is going on inside of the world? Understand, like, you know, you're not just understand your personality, but other people's personalities, you know, masculine, feminine energy, like those kinds of things all matter in this world. Helps you develop a deeper understanding of who you are and how the world operates within that subsystem. So give yourself more information. Like, philosophy has saved a lot of, you know, a lot of the ego issues that I have inside of my mind. And so I would just say, you know, we're in the information age. You can Google anything. Get into like philosophy books, get into like, you know, a lot of the social sciences, like just try to obtain as much information as you possibly can so that you can have a deeper understanding of who you are. And, you know, that will help you, you know, develop a sense of character of who you want to step into as a man. And as you walk your path, as you go along this journey, you're going to see certain things that you might have wished you never did. And you could have handled it in a totally different other way. And so, but you wouldn't have gotten there without having the overview effect, without having seeing all your chess pieces. And, you know, I'm a chess player. I'm very methodical. I grew up playing Texas Hold'em as well, very strategic in nature. So you always want to be that type of guy who's a little bit ahead of the curve, or who knows, who can play the game, let's say, right? And The second thing, I just want to address the comments. One person said he said it was easier said than done to get around people like that. Well, I have a group of about 4,000 men, divorced fathers. You can join that group. But you know, just sharing your story with other people helps you cope as well too. It helps you, like, I mean, I was choked up a little bit, I'm not gonna lie, talking about, because this is the first time I ever talked about this on a live broadcast about not seeing my children. Okay, so but I've told that story millions of times to other people in my circle, and it wasn't easy at the beginning. I was bawling, breaking down and crying every single time that story came up. But as you get, you know, further along your road, and as you get stronger as a man, as you build stronger character, you can start telling these stories with more of a purpose behind them, as opposed to look at me, I'm a victim, you know, I'm just, you know, it's better to you know, get that message out there. And because you know, Louise talked about the connection piece. Like, we have to feel connected in order to feel purpose in our lives. So whether that be with our parents, or whether it be our friends, or whatever our purpose, whatever it may be, just find whatever that is, and you know, take the inventory of yourself. So
That's fantastic. Good stuff. One thing I'm just going to add on here, and I've mentored a lot of men in my life, and I can somewhat relate to you, Robin, because one of the men I mentored about a year and a half ago was a 17-year-old who had twins.
Wow.
And one of the first things I do with any man that comes to me is I give him the space to share his story. It's very, very important, because I know many people say men don't talk, but you give them the right environment, they talk. And as I said before we went on live tonight, you want to give, especially any man, but especially men going through this, a safe and a brave space. Give them a safe space to allow to be brave about their story. So I think it's really good stuff that's happening here. Anyone else want to add on before we go on to our next conversation piece? And thank to everyone's contributing in the chat. It is very active. Okay, let's move on. So we have another conversation piece here. Another important finding from research is that the relationship between a single dad and the child's mother is critical. And Marcel, I think, and Robin have sort of said that already. What can you share with dads to help them manage the relationship with the child's mom? Louise?
Well, what we say in Dad Hero is if you don't get along with this person, this co-parent, to keep it all business, because you are in the business of raising a child together. So when you work with someone who's your partner in business, you are respectful, you keep it on task, you speak clearly, and you just deal with what you need to deal with, and you don't let the children get involved. So that's what we recommend if the situation is not so easygoing. You know, you just keep it about the children. Are you talking about the activities? Are you talking about how they're going to trade places, maybe from one house to another? Whatever you have to talk about. In our situation, maybe you're talking about the children coming to visit the prison with a grandmother or something. Whatever that is, you just stick to the facts and you keep it clear. And you don't want to get the children in the middle of anything. One of the best things I've heard is if you don't get along with your co-parent, you need to love your children more than you dislike your co-parent.
Good advice. Very good. John.
Yeah, my suggestion is not to de-link the things that you want in terms of being a good father from the things that you want in terms of being a conciliatory partner or ex-partner. So there's some transferable things there to focus on. And I think key is knowing yourself. For a lot of guys, our go-to emotion when we express dissatisfaction is anger. And that's one of the things we've got to be really clear and keen to avoid in those conversations and in those interactions, because they don't serve us well. We're trying to take the heat out of a situation to get the best outcomes and the win-win. And in business, we do it all the time. But sometimes, you know, when there's a bit of a bruise, it can be hard. So you've got to go in with a game plan. But again, just to Louise's point, respect is key. And it's gonna spill over into the relationship with the child. So it's super important to go in and be the best you can be in terms of willingness to negotiate and collaborate and work it out.
Nice. Marcel.
I think of Rob playing poker. So you got to put your poker face on. I got to tell you, the moment that I remained calm on the phone with my ex was the moment that she lost it. She actually got aggravated because she wasn't able to get a response out of me. And sadly, I mean, I think she was dealing with what was going on in her own way. And her way was to aggravate me, knowing that I had a temper and I have a bad temper. And she knew that I would react. But the moment that I did not, that's when I realized, I got off the phone and I realized I was in control. And I now could put my game face on and really get the best out of the situation that I could possibly get. And I have to admit, at the moment, I was kind of fist pumping, going, "Yeah, I got her." But as the days went by and I reflected, I realized this is really great in a broader sense. This is not about winning this moment and who wins, who loses. It's so important to stay calm. And I love Louise's comment about loving. I could have used that years ago. If someone had said, "Hey, I got a tip for you," it would have been great to know. And that's a great saying. It's a great thing to keep in your mind. It's easy to learn. Love your children more than you dislike your ex. And then that will just guide you, I guess. I just think, I guess the last thing is really to pick your battles. There are some things that are, insignificant, time you drop off, pick up or whatever, versus, hey, I'm moving away, which happened. And I went 4 or 5 months without seeing my daughter. And it was the closest thing to hell on earth that I could ever imagine. I felt like part of my body was sliced off and dragged away. But anyway, remain calm and make sure that in remaining calm, that you have a plan that you can think right about, that you can look for the best outcome for you, your relationship with your children, because that's the goal. That's the prize that you're going for.
Excellent. Robin?
All great answers. I had to write this down because I don't even speak to my ex-wife, right? So this is gold for me, right? But like, what would I say to somebody in that case? It is obviously situational. You will have to take each one like a grain of salt. But in the cases of really, really toxic, like when you're dealing with toxic characters and people who are really, really difficult to deal with, I'm just going to double down on what Louise said, is just keep it strictly business. That seems to be the consensus within my group as well, the private group that I admin and I oversee, that they all seem to agree with that statement. If it's not in the case of toxicity and you are able to have these conversations with your co-parent, learn effective communication skills, learn how to speak in a way where you can negotiate efficiently, but also compromise without being such a pride-filled or ego-driven maniac. You can step back from that and have logical and rational conversations, but in an effective manner. And what I mean by an effective manner is there's ways that you say things, and there's obviously ways that you don't say things. And so you got to learn and build upon the ways that it's better to say it this way. And if it's something is better to say it that way, then I would take that route, as opposed to just whatever emotion it is that you're feeling inside, the bitterness, the anger, or whatever the case may be. But like I would honestly, just again double down on the business thing, even if because that in itself, right, you would treat the person with a type of a level of communication that is expected on that kind of high level, especially in business, especially when you're dealing with partners along with money and things like that, right? Like we're dealing with kids here now, so it's got to be that same kind of level. So effective communication, I run workshops and stuff like that, but there's other kinds of people who do effective communication workshops and learning about one thing. I guess maybe one actionable thing I would give it to everybody, and if you've already heard of this, then great. But if not, then implement this into your own lives. And it's the positivity sandwich. Start with something great, right? Start with something positive. Insert what you don't like really, and then end it off with the positive. And that positivity sandwich usually eases the way into the other person's, I guess, safe space, right? You don't want to overcrowd somebody with something by starting off with a negative comment right off the bat. So be mindful just using that. And there's other kinds of things, but for the sake of time, we'll just leave it at that.
Fantastic. Drew, I think you wanted to add something to this part of our conversation.
I did, but then as things have gone, it's just been great insight from everyone. So I don't need to reiterate anything that's already been
They
said.
shut you down? Come on, man.
Oh no, I mean, Ed, I can talk.
I know that.
It's for the panel to share, and I think they've done fantastic. So let's keep moving.
Yeah, they're doing. And one of the things I'm enjoying, I always as a host or moderator, when people don't know each other and they're sharing, you're seeing people nodding in agreement in the information that's being shared. That's a beautiful sight. So that's wonderful. Let's get to our next conversation piece. If a dad sees his children or child struggling through the separation, what advice would you give him to help his kids? This is going to be a good answer. Louise, you're on deck first.
Well, in our situation, the men that we work with are in jail. So separation is the name of the game, right? Everyone is separated from their children. So we talk a lot about connectedness. We talk a lot about resource. We talk a lot about connection points, whatever that looks like. We have so many resources for men, and I can talk about that later. But in terms of how do you help your children, to your point, the best thing I can say is one of the dads said, it's really simple. It's really simple. Just be there. It doesn't really matter what your kid's going through, whether they're up, whether they're down, whether they're mad, whether they're crying, whether they're fine and they don't want to talk about it. You just be there and you show up every day and you call them when you say you're going to call them, and you share what you can, you meet them, you just take them for wherever they are that day. Just be there as a dad.
Wonderful. John.
Yeah, I think great advice. Open-ended questions, asking them, what's going on for them, how things are for them, give them the opportunity and the permission to talk about, what they're feeling. And kids aren't always looking for you to solve their problems. Sometimes they just want to just express what they're feeling, because it might be new, it might be emergent. They're trying to make sense of it themselves. And so just having someone there who's got their back in terms of listening can be enough. Sometimes we try to solve a lot of problems, and maybe that's not the crux of it. Maybe it's more about listening and being there for them and validating them in that these feelings are okay. One of the things that's super interesting about separation is that the further the time point out is, generally, the less conflict that's occurring. So things get better with time, and as that kid grows, into adolescence and adulthood, these things start to dissipate. So again, some assurances that this is how you're feeling now, and it's absolutely valid, but this will get better with some time and with some good support.
Excellent. Marcel.
Well, this is where all those moments along the way that you thought were nothing count. Because, for instance, I'm a huge camper, hiker, canoeer. And so my daughter, I remember when she was 9, we went out on a hiking trip. It was a canoeing trip that I took her on. And she's 29 now. And that Christmas, I went and I hadn't seen, I was seeing her every 3 weeks. That was what the courts permitted me to see my ex. And when my ex was cooperative, I got to see her. So I bought her a little wooden frog as a gift. And you think, why in the world did you get that? Because we slept on an island, and the island had alders on one side, and there were all kinds of frogs, and they kept us up all night long. And you would think that would be a horrible experience, but she still has that frog. And at times when things were rough and she didn't understand why we weren't together, and she didn't understand why we weren't getting along, I would make little jokes about the frog, or, well, at least you're getting sleep tonight. You don't have to worry about the frogs, right? Or whatever it might be. And that's just one moment in time. And I mean, it was a big moment, yes, but there were smaller times where you just called to say, hey, how are you? That's it. Quick call. Those are you're sowing seeds into your child's life, and they will remember that. And that will keep the linkage so that you can come back. And it's okay if you don't have them right now. You can start right now, and you can you can have those moments where you just get a break away from all the turmoil, and maybe say a joke or do a funny face or whatever it might be with your children to get that connection, because every single one of those are gold and they count, and they will bring you back and bring that relationship back to a moment that's a happy place for everybody. And I guess that's the only thing I would advice I would give is just you've got all those moments, link back to them and use them to try and bring some calm.
Excellent. Just before we go to Robin, I'm a firm believer it's the little things that make the difference, not the big things. And your story just verifies that. It's just those little things that create memories. And I know it for a fact because I know Marcel a little bit. If I don't hear from him on a weekend, 9 times out of 10, he's up north camping, he's up north canoeing, whatever. So that's him. Robin, go ahead.
Honestly, I'm gonna take one out of my methodical side of my brain here, and I think age matters. I'm gonna put on the ageist hat right now. I think age matters if you're a child, and it should really be taken into consideration of how much the child can actually handle. We need to be also giving the children more responsibility just because of what's going on. They can handle it. I do believe that they can handle it. And the reason why is because, I went through a lot. I witnessed a lot as a young child, been through a lot of the psychological damage that a child could go through. And having witnessed that, but having come out stronger on the other end, I've become more resilient. So we have to trust in the ability that these children aren't going to become weaker or they need to be more coddled or anything like that. I think we need to raise them in a more, I guess not, I wouldn't say like be harsh on them. Like I wouldn't say, go the extra mile with them and push their boundaries, but I would say, at least push the envelope to where they're comfortable with. Give them the tools of how to deal with, kind of emotional instability. So one of the things that I would love if I was younger, because I had a lot of anxiety growing up, was learning how to take box breathing, something that the Navy SEALs do. And it's when they're out in doing something like, when they're out doing in their boot camp and they're in the worst situations, they always use box breathing. And that's something that helps keep yourself grounded, helps connect the mind to the heart, and then the heart to the ground. And so from there, that's where I think we can start giving these tools to children and learn like, hey, I see you're dealing with something right now. Come over here, let's do some breathing. Those kinds of things, and stopping them from and giving them those tools to help them emotionally cope is going to be, so much more valuable down the road, right? Because like bad things are going to happen in this world, and the more that we try to be that helicopter parent and try not to we want to shield our kids from all of this. My parents were that, but I had to force myself out of there to go through the hard things to understand the bigger problems in the world. So, that's kind of a little bit different from what everybody has said, but I think, give the children a little bit more, what am I going to say? Like a little bit more, not respect, but give them some more credit that they can handle a little bit more than we think that they're able to. So.
Excellent. And I heard Louise go, So I know Louise has something she wants to share.
I just wanted to give a practical example there. John talked about open-ended questions, and Robin's talking about communication. One of the exercises that we teach in Dad Hero is just kind of a way to communicate. You know how kids are all the time, and sometimes they don't want to talk, and you say, how was your day? And they're just like, fine. And what did you do today? Nothing. School. You just get these one-word answers. So we teach the guys to say, tell me 3 things. Tell me 3 things about your day. And the kid might say, I played with my friend Johnny, and I ate Jell-O at lunch, and I had a science test. And then we say to the guys, okay, so if you ask that of your child, you have to be prepared to be open and honest back. And so you might say, let me tell you 3 things about my day. And, men in prison think that every day is pretty much the same. They don't have a lot to say, but they might say, I talked to my friend John, I ate Jell-O at lunch, and I had to meet my parole officer, and that was like your science test, really tough. So there are things that places you can get to, but just asking a child, tell me 3 things. And then the kid turns around and says, you tell me 3 things. This is way better than just that little grunt, fine, everything's okay kind of feeling, that open-endedness that can start a whole bunch more conversations after that.
Excellent. Any of the panel want to add on to that?
Maybe a funny story about the one-word game. I call it the one-word game. So I'm on my 2nd teenager now, so my first daughter is growing up. We play the one-word game. So when she comes home and she gives me the 1 words, we see how far we can go with just saying 1 word. and then she realizes what's going on and kind of smiles. But that's all I'm looking for, just a smile, and I walk away. But you see, that's a connection, right?
I'll answer Marius's question here. I think he said what would tools. I think he's referring to me because I was saying give the kids tools, and I just want to touch upon that. He said would tools qualify as experiences, and I think that's one, that's experiences eventually become your tools. But if you can give the tools prior to those experiences, I think it would be beneficial for the child. That's what I meant. And yes, experiences evidently do turn into tools. We do learn. Well, hopefully they do. Hopefully we do the self-revelation later on down the road, and we understand what we need the next round. Because it's like kind of passing a video game in Mario. We could have done better with some 1-ups and some extra stars or something like that. So it's just giving being equipped with having the ability to get past a level with more ease. I think that would be better for the children. I think Ed's muted here. I think you're muted.
Yeah, I'm good now. Yeah, so we're starting to wind down, so we're getting into some tight questions, but we're going to get the most out. We may ask you to stay a few minutes past. Panelists, if you have a few more moments. So next up, communication sounds like it's a virtually important part of the parenting process after separation. What is your guidance to help a dad communicate better with his kids or co-parent? On the flip side, what should a dad not communicate to his children? Louise?
Well, I think it's very important to be honest, but in the not category that you're talking about, it's not appropriate to answer a question to a child that is not age appropriate. Kids are going to ask everything, but it's always good to answer honestly with as much information as you think they can handle and what they need to know at that specific age. So for example, we have a lot of resources about how to talk to your kids about incarceration, because that's the part of being honest. But how you answer that question and what you tell them about your crime is tempered by how old they are.
John?
Yeah, just, I think, I don't think it's fair that kids would, get into a place of being a moderator or mediator of events, between the parents being exes. So I think, there's a protection factor there. The other bit I just mentioned is that as guys, we don't really learn about communication and relationships. The time that we generally get the instruction is when something's gone wrong, around domestic violence, partner violence. Like that's where the programs are to learn about relationships. So my suggestion is to think about preventing that, avoiding that situation where you can in the context of a separation, but also looking for avenues to develop some skills and thoughts around relationships and about your own identity and how you can be the best partner you can be.
It's Marcel.
I would say the things that you should say is, I guess you want to be in a place where you have no doubt in your mind that your child knows that you love them and you are in their corner for them, that there is no shred of doubt whatsoever. And that means saying that at every opportunity. Say to yourself, can I confidently say that my children know that I love them? That's what you should be always saying and ensuring that you get that message across. And
Robin. Oh, sorry, Marcel.
I was just going to address the second one, what not to say. And for myself, as much as my ex-wife spoke poorly of me, I never wanted to say something bad about my ex-wife because I never wanted my concern was that my daughter would have a poor relationship with her mother. Every child needs a mother and a father. I can control how I behave. I cannot control how my ex-wife behaved, and she chose to speak poorly of me. I never spoke poorly of her. It was one of my never go-to places. That was it. Yeah.
Thank you, Robin.
Yeah, I mean, it's always difficult going last. I just want to say, and after giving such amazing, awesome responses and such great advice, I take all that to my heart. And so, what's left, I would say, really and truly, you should never just be honest. Obviously, first and foremost, never tell a lie. Okay, but I mean, the complexity in which the truth actually is, that can be hidden. So age appropriate is definitely on the list there, because I mean, and it really shouldn't be as much off the table. I think one thing that I grew up wishing and wanting was a deeper connection with my parents. But also, one thing that I will say here is there's certain conversations that a son should have with his dad, and there's certain conversations that a daughter should have with the mom, and those need to be kind of ironed out with, I guess, your co-parent, and have those important discussions, because we have different body parts, and those kinds of things need to be addressed when we're speaking about the birds and the bees a little bit, and obviously in a hetero kind of marriage type of deal here. So obviously, being age appropriate, and then also having those conversations within the subcontext of their own personal experiences, because it's hard for a man to know what a woman is going through, and it's hard for a woman to say what a dad is going through. And so there's just that level of understanding there that I think certain conversations could be had with just the mom, and certain conversations with just the dad.
Excellent. Drew, you wanted to come in here, so please do.
Again, more from personal experience, I want to share and reiterate Marcel's point about, what you should not communicate is anything negative about the other parent. In my mom's case, the only thing that I heard about my father growing up, even with what happened, were his strengths, were the things that she valued about him, and what strengths that she saw emerging in me as I grew, and where they came from in him. And so, the reality, she always told the truth. She was always honest about what happened, but she identified characteristics that were admirable. And because she knew that I was going to grow up and ultimately be a man, she needed me to see that those gifts were not just, where they came from, and added some value. And so I think it's a really powerful example. And I would encourage any father that, if you have a child, they are part of the other parent is part of them, and they're going to have strengths, and they need to know and understand where those strengths come from. And I think it's really important that you never place a negative perception of the other parent in the mind of your child ever. And I just can't reiterate how important that is, because as my identity as a person, that example has been so powerful for me. And I didn't realize it at the time, but as I look back now and being a parent of a father myself, I'm a little bit blown away, but I can't share that. I've showed that from the rooftops enough, but how important it is.
Excellent. Thanks, Drew. So what we're going to do is we got one more panel question. There's one from the audience. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the audience question, and we'll get into our final panel question. So from the audience, it's a gentleman here. How do you cope with pain after separating from an ex, very recent, and love your kids at the same time that currently live with you and not with the ex? Anyone want to take a stab at that one?
I'll start because that's very similar to me. So like when I first separated from my kids, I brought the children. I uprooted them from daycare, their friends and family, everything. I moved them from Vancouver to Toronto because I was upset at what happened, and I took them here with me, and I was not a good dad, let me tell you. Okay, I was just going downhill from there. So what I had to do in that moment was really like that inventory piece of taking inventory of yourself and the things that trigger you and the things that make you mad or things that make you happy, things that make you sad. Like, I mean, doing literally everything, because the mismanagement of emotions is gonna, your children are definitely going to see that and witness that. And kids never listen to what you say, they always watch what you do, and then go and they'll just do their own thing. They'll never listen. They'll just watch what you do. So setting an example, I think, is the biggest thing. And how do you set a good example is by really being self-aware and knowing who you are, really truly deeply in every little category.
Anyone else want to add to that question at all?
The bitterness check. Sorry, one thing. I do have one more thing. The bitterness check is something that I love to promote as well too. Is that if any time there's an ill thought of your ex inside of your head, that means you're still bitter. Okay, and that subconsciously is like a poison in your mind. It's like it's going to literally seep into every single decision that you make on a subconscious level. So bitterness, removing that from your day-to-day life and being grateful, right? Connecting your mind to the heart, being grateful that you had gone through something like that is going to help subconsciously it'll subconsciously change your state, your mood. It'll make you make better decisions. You're not going to do things out of anger or hate. And you're thinking on a, like, Marcel talked about, how his ex-wife would throw him under the bus and talk so much crap about him, but he would rise above that, and it would make her look really dumb. Like, that's, essentially, kind of what I'm saying here is like, there's levels to this, and get above that level if you, in any way possible, shape, way, or form. So that's it, I'm done.
No problem. Marcel?
It's all good stuff. And I would just say, and rising above that was easy because I was more focused on my daughter. I really I did not want her to have this baggage that she had with her mother. But and what I think with having the kids in the home with you, like you're left there with the kids. This is what I'm seeing. You're the parent. You've got to focus. You've got to be that foundation for your children in that home. And I know this is not, like, it's so easy for me to say this in one sentence, and we're going to and I'm going to snap my fingers and everything will be fine. It's going to be rough, but you gotta pull whatever you can together, and you gotta be that foundation in the home for your children to get through that, and be positive, and yes, you're going to have those times you're going to have to go away and maybe get some time to take a break when the kids are in bed, take a break and sort of try to relax and deal with the pain, but when the kids are around, it's being the parent for them and making sure that they have a home and they're loved and they've got all the things that they need, and we'll work through this, and whatever other messaging you need to get through to them. But I think that's your focus, and that can be the focus that draws you away from all the pain, right? You can focus in on trying to be what they need you to be there for them, the dad.
Excellent. Louise, John, do you want to add to that?
That's a really solid point being made by Marcel there. Just to say, it's strengths-based. It's about what you can do to make a difference, and it's not getting caught in the deficit or the loss or the transition around the separation. It's it's dealing, the advice is to focus on what you can do. And so I think it's just such salient advice. Yeah.
Louise, I heard you.
Great answers. I have nothing more to add, honestly. I would have only said what you guys said. Terrific. Thank you.
All right, fantastic. So we're going to come to the final conversation point for our panelists tonight. So what we'll do this time, if Louise gives me permission,
Sure, it's your show.
since Robin said that he's always going at the end, I said we're going to flip it this time. So Robin, what I want to do is we'll start with you, and also as you're giving your final comments here, do share where people can contact you if anyone wants to give their contact information and their final comments. So our final conversation piece here tonight is, what is your final word of advice for separated dads? Robin?
No, I appreciate that. So now I'm on the spot. I usually have time. Now I usually have time to answer, but now I'm on the spot, so I got to jump up into this one though. You know what? Honestly, I think I'll give a little bit more application, just because I was, giving a lot of theory behind, a lot of the answers that I gave. So I want to give some actionable tools, some application for the men out there that are listening, or if you want something, this can, even the women, this is just an extra thing, an extra bonus thing, but something application based is something like when I say get to know who you are, take inventory, what I really mean is there are all kinds of studies out there to gauge your personality, whether in business, whether in whatever. I mean, the big five, there's love languages, there's attachment styles, there's relationship horsemen, the 4 horsemen, and there's like other kinds of tools and things that you can, I guess, learn about yourself by taking these quizzes. And so when you take these quizzes and you can understand who you are, also read up on like other people's, I guess their MBTIs or whatever, and ask people about these, and the next time you have a conversation with somebody, you can spot these things in people. So that way, how best to serve that person, especially if you're in a relationship, right? Because I know if you're separated, you're probably going to want to think about dating and stuff like that. So like, a part of this is knowing who you are and how to also, be with the partner that you choose to be with. And so that's also understanding them. So a little application. One of the things that I like to know is the big 5, openness to ideas, conscientiousness, extrovertedness, introvert, those kinds of tests. Learn all those kinds of things about who you are, even though how silly they can be. It just gives you another angle in which you can kind of, I guess, better yourself. So.
And Rob, where can people get in touch with you?
Oh, right. I'm The Robin Cho on every platform. So you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm more active on Instagram, so you can go there. And YouTube, my show is put on hold, but I will be producing more content, some solo videos and stuff like that. So you can find that on YouTube at Relationships with Rob. I've also interviewed Drew, actually, and told his story about, his unique story and how we portray that. So yeah, come join the journey. This is all fun. And if you know a father that's going through divorce, then there's the Dads Overcoming Divorce group. You can just jump in there.
Thank you so much. Marcel.
Hey, one word, final word. Persevere, persevere, persevere. People are not going to wonder, what happened after you fell. They're going to want to know what you did when you got back up. So it's a long road. It can be rough at times, but I'm telling you, at the end, it is so rewarding. My daughter's 29, and we have a very, very close relationship. We text all the time. Thank God for texting. And I have 2 beautiful grandchildren now, and I can't tell you enough how wonderful it is. So there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not a train. Persevere, persevere, persevere.
All right, we got those 3 words. They are laminated into our minds. Good stuff. Next up, John.
Yeah, not to Pollyanna it, but just to say that, the transitions and things that challenge us, if we learn from them going forward, we might just be better equipped and keep moving. It's, you know, it's not a cross-sectional moment. It's a longitudinal, it's a long game, this one. And so, you know, by learning from the things that might have been better and what you could have contributed to, you know, it can go a long way. The other bit I'd just say, yeah, a lot of us, you know, our models were our dads, and or not, or parents, you know, in general. And, you know, we didn't really have a blueprint. So give yourself a little bit of leeway in terms of recognizing, you know, that things shift and you need to be your own person in it as well. It's not like we were taught, you know, these skills that were going to probably equip us as well as we might have hoped.
And John, if people want to find out more information about you or your organization?
Yeah, we're actually doing some work at the moment for November around relationship breakdowns for guys. So you can find me at the Men's Health Research Program at UBC, and we'd be really keen to chat with guys who are going through some of these issues. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing with us tonight. And Louise.
My final comment would be just to keep your dad identity. Don't let anybody label you. Don't let anybody take that away from you. You are a dad, and you want to stay a dad, and you want to be an involved dad. And I'm really big on resources and concrete things. So I'll just show you. You might think it's corny, but it goes a long way. We have this huge paper hug that we made. And you can make one yourself. It's just a big, long piece of paper, right? And we had them printed at a printer. But what you do is you take it and you make it look like you. So you put whatever you got, you know, skin color, rings, bracelets, tattoos, whatever is on your arms and your hands, and you do it up, and then you write all the sayings that you want for your child. I love you, keep going, stay in school, you're the best, whatever, great job on the science test, whatever you want to say to that child, and then you cut it out and you send it to them, and don't be surprised if you get one back. It's a we call them a paper hug, but it's about keeping your dad identity.
And Louise, if they want to find out more information about your organization?
I threw my contact stuff into the chat. We're at Canadian Families and Corrections Network. You can look us up online and everything's there.
Thank
Tons
you.
of resources.
Thank you. So next time we want to see all our dads come on with their big,
huge hugs.
huge hug. Fantastic. Well, I'd like to just say before I hand it off to Drew to close, thank you, first of all, to our panelists. I like to call them friends. I don't like panelists. It sounds so formal, but thank you to our friends for making this an epic conversation. I'd like to thank the audience live or who will be watching on the replay. Lots of positive comments here going on in the chat, and I know there'll be lots when this is posted for a replay. I have 3 quick things I'm going to say before I hand it over to Drew. First thing is there is a course that we offer at Dad Central called Super Dad, Super Kids. And one of the key components in one of the chapters says to dads, it's not how much time you spend with your children or your child, it's what you do in that time that you spend with your child or children. Next up, and this is for all the dads out there, the self-care piece is very important. And the better you are to yourself, the better you're probably going to be for your children. So the self-care is really important. And the last thing, I say this to dads, men, everybody, especially during 2020, give yourself grace. Drew?
Really, I have to follow that in. That's a fantastic summary. What more? That's it. Everyone, no, might drop right there. So thank you so much, Ed. That's a fun. What I'll add is this. Here at Dad Central, our goal is to be like what Ed just described, a great resource for dads and for anyone who supports or is serving families and the family has a dad. So we've got a resource that's specifically for this circumstance. It's called Full-Time Dad, Part-Time Kids. It's for recently separated or divorced dads. We also have a resource that's specifically for dads who are in blended families so that they've gone through the separation. And those are all available for free on dadcentral.ca. Go into our free resources section and you can have access to it. And as this conversation was, it's really focused on helping you be the best dad, best parent you can be in a very difficult, challenging circumstance. And it helps you focus on the right things. It helps provide resources, support, and gives you tangibility in terms of what you can actually do and how to do it. You got great ideas today. I love that hug one, Louise. Thanks so much. So dadcentral.ca has free resources. That's why this conversation's here, is to, one, invite you in to like know about us, but two, also share with other people and give people the support and resources that they need in these times. So access that as much as you can. I'll just wrap it up by saying thanks so much to our panel, to Government Care, and to everyone who chose to come and attend, and anyone who watches on replay. Thank you so much. Tell a friend about Dad Central. Tell somebody who needs some resource support about Dad Central. We want to be here and meet you where you're at and support you as much as we can. So thank you so much, everyone. It's been an honor and a privilege to hear and you share your stories and talk tonight. So wishing the dads and everyone out there all the best, and have a great evening, and look forward to seeing you in our next conversation. Bye.